I smoothed my dress and took a deep breath, plastering on a smile as I opened the front door. "Catherine, what a surprise," I said, my voice sickly sweet. "We weren't expecting you today." My mother-in-law breezed past me, her perfume leaving a cloying trail. "Oh, Kelsey, dear, I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd pop by. Where's my Gregory?" Before I could answer, my husband appeared from his study, grinning. "Mom, what brings you here?" I retreated to the kitchen, gripping the counter as their voices drifted in. Everything had been perfect this morning, Gregory and I sharing coffee, our daughter Emma chattering about her upcoming school play. Now, with Catherine's unexpected arrival, tension crackled through the air. "Kelsey?" Gregory called. "Could you bring us some tea?" Gritting my teeth, I prepared a tray and returned to the living room. Catherine was perched on the edge of the sofa, rifling through her oversized purse. "Ah, there it is," she said triumphantly, pulling out a small velvet box. "Gregory, darling, I found this while cleaning out the attic. I thought Kelsey might like to have it." My husband took the box, opening it carefully. His brow furrowed. "Mom, this isn't ours. Where did you get this?" Catherine waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, it's been in that old trunk for years. I'm not sure where it came from originally." Curiosity got the better of me. "May I see it?" Gregory handed me the box, and I nearly dropped it when I saw its contents. A delicate gold locket nestled on faded velvet, its surface etched with a familiar pattern of intertwined roses. This was my mother's," I whispered, my fingers trembling as I touched the cool metal. Catherine's eyes gleamed. "Was it now? How fascinating." I looked up sharply. "How did you get this? My mother's been gone for years." "As I said, dear, I'm not sure where it came from, and perhaps it was mixed in with some old things." Gregory placed a hand on my arm. "Kels, are you okay? You look pale." I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of memories threatening to overwhelm me. "I'm fine. I need some air." As I stood, Catherine's voice stopped me. "Kelsey, don't you want to open it? There might be a picture inside." My heart raced. I hadn't seen my mother's face in over 2 decades. With shaking hands, I pried open the locket. Inside was a faded photograph of a young woman with my eyes and smile, holding a baby. "That's you, isn't it?" Catherine asked, her voice dripping with false concern. "My, how alike you two look." I snapped the locket shut. "I need to lie down. Gregory, could you see your mother out?" Without waiting for a response, I fled upstairs, collapsing on our bed. The locket pressed against my palm, its weight far heavier than its size suggested. How had Catherine gotten her hands on this? And why now, after all these years? The question swirled in my mind along with long-buried memories of my mother. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Kels?" Gregory's voice came through the door. "Mom's gone. Can I come in?" I sat up, hastily wiping my eyes. "Yeah, come in." He sat beside me, his face etched with worry. "Want to talk about it?" I shook my head. "Not yet. I don't understand how your mother ended up with this. It doesn't make sense." Gregory sighed. "I don't know either, but we'll figure it out, okay?" As he pulled me into a hug, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Catherine's unexpected visit and the mysterious appearance of my mother's locket felt like the first tremors before an earthquake. Little did I know, it was just the beginning of a storm that would shake the very foundations of our family. The locket lay heavy in my hand as I stared at the phone, debating whether to call my aunt. If anyone knew about my mother's past, it would be her sister. But before I could decide, the doorbell rang. I groaned, already knowing who it was. Sure enough, Catherine's voice floated up from downstairs, followed by Gregory's warm welcome. This was the 3rd time this week she'd dropped by. Steeling myself, I headed down. Catherine beamed at me, her eyes glinting. "Kelsey, dear, I brought some old photo albums I thought you might like to see." My stomach churned. "That's thoughtful of you, Catherine." Gregory shot me a pleading look. "Mom's been going through boxes in the attic. Lots of memories, right, Mom?" I bit back a retort. Of course she had. "How nice," I managed. Catherine settled on the couch, patting the spot beside her. "Come, Kelsey, let's take a trip down memory lane." Reluctantly, I sat. Catherine flipped open an album, pointing to a faded photograph. "Look, it's me at your age. Don't you see the resemblance to your mother?" I stiffened. "I wouldn't know. I haven't seen her in years." "Oh, that's right," Catherine cooed. Her sympathy as fake as her eyelashes. Such a shame, but perhaps these photos will help fill in some blanks. As she flipped through the album, my unease grew. How did she have so many pictures from my mother's youth? And why was she so eager to share them now? "Catherine," I said, my voice tight, "how quickly did you come by these?" She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, you know how it is. Things get mixed up over the years." Gregory cleared his throat. "Mom, maybe we should." "Oh," Catherine exclaimed, cutting him off. "I almost forgot. I brought something else for you, Kelsey." She reached into her oversized purse and pulled out a small, ornate box. My breath caught. It was identical to the one that had held my mother's locket. "Where did you get that?" I demanded. Catherine's smile never wavered. "It was with the other things. I thought you might like to have it." I snatched the box, my hands shaking as I opened it. Inside lay a delicate silver bracelet, one I remembered my mother wearing when I was a child. This was hers," I whispered. "Was it?" Catherine's eyes widened in mock surprise. "How extraordinary." I turned to Gregory, my voice rising. "Did you know about this?" He held up his hands. "Kels, I swear I had no idea." Catherine patted my knee. Now, dear, no need to get upset. I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable explanation." "Then explain it," I snapped. "How do you have my mother's things?" The room fell silent. Catherine's smile finally faltered, but before she could respond, Emma burst through the front door. "Mom! Dad! Guess what?" Our daughter froze, sensing the tension. "What's going on?" Gregory jumped up. "Nothing, sweetie. Why don't we go get a snack?" As they left, Catherine leaned in close. "Kelsey, dear, I know this must be difficult for you, but don't you think it's time you learn the truth about your mother?" My heart pounded. "What are you talking about?" She patted my hand. "All in good time. For now, why don't I come by tomorrow? We can have a nice long chat, just the two of us." Before I could protest, she was gathering her things. "Gregory," she called. "I'm heading out. See you tomorrow, Kelsey." The door closed behind her, leaving me stunned and clutching my mother's bracelet. What game was Catherine playing? And more importantly, what did she know about my mother that I didn't? As Gregory and Emma's laughter drifted in from the kitchen, I made a decision. Tomorrow I'd get answers, whether Catherine wanted to give them or not. I paced the living room, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. Catherine was due any minute, and I was determined to get answers. The sound of a key in the lock made me freeze. "Kelsey?" Catherine's sing-song voice called out. "I'm here, dear." I spun around. "How did you get in?" She dangled a key, smiling. "Oh, Gregory gave me a spare. For emergencies, you know." My blood boiled. "This isn't an emergency, Catherine, and you can't just walk into our home whenever you please." She waved dismissively. "Don't be silly. We're family." I took a deep breath. "Catherine, we need to talk about boundaries, and about my mother." Her eyes glittered. "Of course, dear. That's why I'm here." We sat, the air thick with tension. Catherine pulled out another photo album. "I found more pictures. Your mother was quite the beauty." I gritted my teeth. "How do you have these? You didn't even know my mother." Catherine's smile turned predatory. "Oh, but I did. We were close." My heart raced. "What do you mean, close?" She leaned in. "Your mother and I shared a lot, Kelsey, including Gregory's father." The room spun. "That's impossible. You're lying." "Am I?" She pulled out a letter. "Read it yourself." With shaking hands, I unfolded the paper. My mother's handwriting stared back at me, detailing a torrid affair with Catherine's husband. "No," I whispered. "This can't be true." Catherine's voice dripped with false sympathy. "I'm afraid it is. Your mother was quite the homewrecker." Rage surged through me. "Get out. Now." She stood, clutching her purse. "Think about what I've told you, Kelsey. There's so much more you don't know." As soon as she left, I called Gregory. "We need to talk. Now." An hour later, we sat at the kitchen table, the letter between us. "Did you know about this?" I demanded. Gregory's face was pale. "No, I swear. I had no idea." "Then why give her a key to our house? Why let her invade our lives like this?" He ran a hand through his hair. "She's my mother, Kels. I thought she was just trying to connect with you." I slammed my hand on the table. "Connect? She's manipulating us, Gregory. Can't you see that?" "Maybe she just wants to help you understand your past," he said weakly. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "My past is none of her business, and if you won't set boundaries with her, I will." Gregory reached for me. "Kelsey, wait." But I was already halfway up the stairs. I slammed our bedroom door, my mind reeling. How much of what Catherine said was true, and how much was carefully crafted manipulation? I pulled out my phone, scrolling to my aunt's number. It was time to get some real answers. "Aunt Sarah? It's Kelsey. We need to talk about Mom." Her voice was wary. "What brought this on?" I took a deep breath. "Catherine, Gregory's mother. She has Mom's things, photos I've never seen, and a letter about an affair." Silence stretched across the line. Finally, Aunt Sarah sighed. "Oh, Kelsey, I'd hoped you'd never have to know about all that." My heart sank. "So it's true?" "Some of it," she said carefully. "But I guarantee Catherine isn't telling you everything. There's more to the story." A knock at the door interrupted us. "Kelsey?" Gregory called. "Mom's here again. She says she has more to tell us." I closed my eyes, dread settling in my stomach. "I have to go, Aunt Sarah, but this isn't over." As I hung up, I steeled myself for another confrontation. Whatever game Catherine was playing, I was determined to win. For my family's sake and for the truth about my mother. I stormed downstairs, my anger fueling each step. Catherine sat in our living room, looking far too comfortable. Gregory hovered nearby, his face a mask of concern. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. Catherine smiled sweetly. "I thought we could continue our chat, dear. There's so much more to discuss." I turned to Gregory. "Did you let her in again?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Kels, she had the key." "I couldn't exactly." "The key you gave her," I interrupted. "Without asking me." Catherine clucked her tongue. Now, let's not fight. I'm only here to help." I laughed bitterly. "Help? You've done nothing but cause problems since you showed up with that locket." "Kelsey," Gregory started, but I held up a hand. "No, I'm done." I marched to the front door and flung it open. "Catherine, get out, now." She didn't move. "Don't you want to know the truth about your mother?" "Not from you," I spat. Catherine sighed dramatically. "Very well, but remember, I tried to do this the easy way." She stood, reaching into her purse. "Perhaps these will change your mind." She tossed a stack of photographs onto the coffee table. I froze, recognizing my mother's face among them. But the images, they couldn't be real. "What is this?" I whispered, picking up a photo of my mother in a compromising position with a man I didn't recognize. Catherine's voice dripped with false sympathy. "Your mother had quite a colorful past, dear. These are just the tip of the iceberg." My hands shook. "Where did you get these?" "Oh, I have my sources," she said airily. "The question is, what will you do with this information?" I looked at Gregory, who seemed as shocked as I felt. "Did you know about this?" He shook his head vehemently. "Kels, I swear I had no idea." Suddenly, it all became too much. The invasion of privacy, the manipulation, the secrets. I couldn't take it anymore. "That's it," I said, my voice deadly calm. "I'm calling the police." Catherine's eyes widened. "Now, Kelsey, let's not be hasty." But I was already dialing. Gregory tried to intervene, but I pushed past him. "Hello? Yes, I need to report an intruder in my home." Catherine stood, her facade cracking. "You wouldn't dare." I met her gaze steadily. "Watch me." The next hour was a blur. Police arrived, questions were asked, and Catherine's smug demeanor finally crumbled. To my surprise, she admitted to entering our home without permission and to possessing items that didn't belong to her. As the officers led her away, she turned to me. "This isn't over, Kelsey. You'll regret this." The door closed behind her, leaving Gregory and me in stunned silence. "I can't believe you did that," he finally said. I rounded on him. "I can't believe you've been enabling her this whole time. What were you thinking, Gregory?" He ran a hand through his hair. "She's my mother, Kels. I thought." "I don't know what I thought." "Well, start thinking now," I said, "because this ends today. No more keys, no more surprise visits, no more manipulations. Do you understand?" Gregory nodded slowly. "I'm sorry. I should have set boundaries earlier." I sighed, the fight draining out of me. "Yes, you should have, but it's done now." As I turned to go upstairs, Gregory caught my arm. "What about the photos and everything else Catherine said about your mother?" I paused, my heart heavy. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out the truth without Catherine's interference." Climbing the stairs, I felt a mix of relief and trepidation. I'd taken back control, but at what cost? And what other secrets were lurking in my family's past? One thing was certain, this battle was far from over. But for the first time in weeks, I felt ready to face whatever came next, with or without Gregory by my side. The days following Catherine's arrest were eerily quiet. Gregory walked on eggshells around me, and I found myself jumping at every unexpected sound, half expecting Catherine to materialize in our living room again. One afternoon, as I sorted through the mail, A thick envelope caught my eye. No return address. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were more photos of my mother, along with newspaper clippings I'd never seen before. A note in unfamiliar handwriting read, "The truth can't stay buried forever." I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. The clippings detailed a scandal from decades ago, my mother's name linked to a powerful businessman in a corruption case. How had I never known about this? The front door opened and Gregory called out, "Kels, you home?" I quickly shoved everything back into the envelope. "In here." He entered, his face tight with worry. "Mom's been released. She wants to talk." My stomach churned. Absolutely not. "Kelsey, please. She says she has important information about your mother." I stood, anger flaring. "More lies and manipulation, you mean? When will you stop defending her?" Gregory's shoulders slumped. "I'm not defending her. I think there's more to this story than we know." "You're right," I said, holding up the envelope. "There is, but I'm done letting Catherine control the narrative." His eyes widened. "What's that?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out without Catherine's interference." Just then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at Riverside Park in an hour if you want the whole truth. Come alone." My heart raced. Could it be my aunt, or was this another of Catherine's tricks? "I have to go," I said, grabbing my keys. Gregory caught my arm. "Kels, wait, where are you going?" I hesitated, then made a decision, to get answers, real ones this time. "Let me come with you," he pleaded. I shook my head. "No, I need to do this alone." As I drove to the park, my mind whirled with possibilities. Who had sent those photos? Who wanted to meet? And most importantly, what was the truth about my mother's past? I parked and scanned the area, my heart pounding. A figure sat on a bench near the pond, hunched and unrecognizable. Taking a deep breath, I approached. "Hello?" The person looked up and I gasped. It was my mother. "Kelsey," she said, her voice cracking. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry." I stood frozen, 1,000 emotions warring inside me. "Mom? What? How?" She patted the bench beside her. "Sit, please. I owe you an explanation." Numbly, I sat. My mother, the woman I hadn't seen in over 2 decades, looked older, worn, but her eyes were the same. "I know Catherine's been causing trouble," she began. "I should have known she'd never let it go." "Let what go?" I asked, finding my voice. "Mom, what's going on?" She sighed heavily. "It's a long story, honey. But the short version is this. Catherine and I were once friends, close friends, until I discovered her husband's illegal activities." My head spun. "The businessman in the newspaper articles." Mom nodded. "You've seen those, then. Yes, that was Gregory's father. I tried to expose him, but Catherine, she turned it all around on me, made it look like I was the one involved." Tears filled her eyes. "I had to leave, Kelsey, to protect you. Catherine threatened to drag you into it if I didn't disappear." I sat in stunned silence, trying to process it all. But why now? Why is she bringing all this up again? Mom's face hardened. "Because the truth is about to come out. All of it. And Catherine's trying to control the narrative." She reached for my hand. "Kelsey, I need your help. Will you stand with me and finally bring this all to light?" I stared at her, my heart pounding. This was it, the moment that would change everything. My relationship with Gregory, my understanding of my past, my very identity, it all hung in the balance. Taking a deep breath, I made my decision. "Tell me everything, Mom, from the beginning." As she began to speak, I knew there was no turning back. The battle for the truth had only just begun. I paced our living room, my mother's revelations echoing in my mind. The truth was more twisted than I could have imagined, and I knew confronting Gregory was inevitable. But before I could gather my thoughts, the front door burst open. Gregory rushed in, followed closely by Catherine. Their faces were flushed with excitement, a stark contrast to the dread pooling in my stomach. "Kelsey," Gregory exclaimed, "we have amazing news." I crossed my arms, steeling myself. "What is it?" Catherine beamed, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "We've found the perfect solution to all our problems, dear." Gregory nodded enthusiastically. "We bought a house, Kels, a fresh start for all of us." The world tilted on its axis. What? "It's beautiful," Catherine gushed. "Plenty of room for the whole family. We can all live together just like we should." I struggled to breathe. How did you pay for this?" Gregory's smile faltered slightly. "Well, we used our savings, and I borrowed from your account, just temporarily, of course." The room spun. "My account? Gregory, how could you?" Catherine waved dismissively. Now, Kelsey, don't be dramatic. It's for the best. Rage boiled inside me. The best? You've been manipulating us from the start, and now this. Gregory reached for me, but I jerked away. Kels, please. We did this for you, for us, to bring the family together. Family? I laughed bitterly. Do you even know what that word means anymore? Catherine's eyes narrowed. Watch your tone, young lady, after everything we've done for you. Everything you've done? I exploded. You've lied, schemed, and now stolen from me. I know the truth about you, Catherine, about what you did to my mother. The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? I turned to Gregory. Did you know about your father's crimes? About how your mother framed mine to cover it up? He stumbled back, shock etched across his features. Kels, what? Don't play dumb, I snapped. I met with my mother. I know everything. Catherine's mask of benevolence cracked. You ungrateful little... Enough, I shouted. I want you both out, now. Gregory's eyes filled with tears. Kelsey, please, we can work this out. I shook my head, my resolve hardening. No, we can't, not anymore. Catherine sneered. You can't kick us out, we own this house now. My blood ran cold. What? She produced a document with a flourish. It's all here, dear. The deed's in our names. You should really pay more attention to what you sign. I snatched the paper, scanning it in disbelief. There it was in black and white, my signature, transferring ownership of our home. This is forged, I whispered. Catherine smirked. Prove it. The room closed in around me. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, gone in an instant. Gregory reached for me again. Kels, I'm sorry. I recoiled from his touch. You thought what? That you could betray me like this and I'd just accept it? His face crumpled. I love you. I was trying to save our family. There is no family anymore, I said, my voice breaking. Not after this. I turned, grabbing my keys and phone. Catherine called after me, her voice sickly sweet. Where are you going, dear? This is your home, remember? I paused at the door, looking back at the wreckage of my life. No, I said quietly. It's not. As I stepped outside, the weight of everything crashed down on me. I was homeless, betrayed by the man I loved, and facing a battle I wasn't sure I could win. But as I drove away, one thought crystallized in my mind. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Catherine and Gregory had no idea what I was capable of when pushed to my limits, and they were about to find out. I sat in my lawyer's office, the divorce papers spread before me like a roadmap to a future I never imagined. My hands trembled as I reached for the pen. Are you sure about this, Kelsey? Sarah, my attorney and longtime friend, asked gently. I nodded, my jaw set. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Just as I was about to sign, my phone buzzed. Gregory's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. Kels, please, his voice cracked. Don't do this. We can work it out. Think of Emma. My heart clenched at the mention of our daughter. I am thinking of Emma. That's why I have to do this. Give me one more chance, he pleaded. Meet me at the new house. Let me explain everything. I closed my eyes, torn between anger and the lingering echoes of love. Fine, 1 hour. Sarah touched my arm as I stood. Be careful, Kelsey. Remember what's at stake. I drove to the address Gregory had texted, my emotions a storm of rage and heartache. The house loomed before me, a monument to betrayal. Gregory met me at the door, his face haggard. Thank you for coming. I brushed past him, entering a living room that screamed of Catherine's taste. Make it quick. He paced, running his hands through his hair. I know I messed up, but I did it for us, for our family. Family? I spat. You let your mother manipulate and steal from us. You betrayed everything we built together. I was trying to keep us together, he shouted, then deflated. Mom said, she said if we didn't do this you'd leave, that you were planning to take Emma and run. I stared at him, incredulous. And you believed her? I didn't know what to believe anymore, he whispered. Everything was falling apart. A noise from upstairs made me freeze. Who else is here? Gregory's eyes widened. No one, I swear. But footsteps on the stairs betrayed his lie. Catherine appeared, Emma clinging to her hand. Mommy, Emma cried, running to me. I scooped her up, fury blazing through me. What is this? Catherine smiled. Saccharine sweet. We thought Emma should see her new home. Isn't it lovely, dear? You had no right, I hissed, clutching Emma tighter. Oh, but we do, Catherine purred, producing a document. You see, we've filed for emergency custody, given your unstable behavior lately. The world tilted beneath my feet. You what? Gregory stepped forward, his face pale. Mom, we agreed we wouldn't. Hush, darling, Catherine cut him off. It's for the best. I set Emma down, my voice low and dangerous. Emma, sweetheart, go play in the other room for a minute. Once she was gone, I rounded on them. You think you can take my daughter? After everything you've done? Catherine's mask slipped, revealing the venom beneath. We can and we will. You're outnumbered, Kelsey. It's time to accept defeat. Something snapped inside me. Years of manipulation, lies, and betrayal crystallized into a single burning point of rage. No, I said, my voice steady. I won't let you destroy my life or my daughter's. This ends now. I pulled out my phone, my finger hovering over a number. I have proof, Catherine, of everything. Your husband's crimes, your cover-up, the forged documents. One call, and it all comes crashing down. The color drained from her face. You're bluffing. Try me, I challenged, my heart pounding. The room crackled with tension. Gregory looked between us, lost and confused. Catherine's eyes darted, calculating. In that moment I knew. This was it. The point of no return. Whatever happened next would change everything forever. My finger descended toward the call button, and the world held its breath. My finger hovered over the call button, the room thick with tension. Catherine's eyes darted between my face and the phone, her mask of control cracking. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. I met her gaze steadily. Try me. Gregory stepped forward, his face pale. Kelsey, what's going on? What proof? I took a deep breath. Your father's crimes, Greg, the corruption, the cover-up, everything. His eyes widened in shock. That's impossible. Dad was a criminal, I finished. And your mother helped hide it all. Catherine lunged for my phone, but I was quicker. It's over, Catherine. I've already sent copies to my lawyer. She stumbled back, her face ashen. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled up a series of emails on my phone screen. These are from my mother, detailing everything she uncovered before you forced her into hiding. Gregory sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. All this time, you knew? I softened slightly. I only found out recently, when I met with my mother. Catherine's laugh was brittle. So what? It's your word against ours. Who do you think they'll believe? They'll believe the evidence, I said firmly. Bank records, witness statements, everything my mother collected before you threatened her. The fight seemed to drain out of Catherine. She looked suddenly old, defeated. What do you want? I straightened my shoulders. I want my life back, my home, my savings, and full custody of Emma. You can't, Catherine began, but Gregory cut her off. Enough, Mom, he said quietly. It's over. He turned to me, his eyes filled with regret. Kels, I'm so sorry, I had no idea. I nodded, my heart aching despite everything. I know. Catherine slumped in a chair, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. What happens now? Now, I said, you both sign these papers. I pulled out the documents I'd brought from my lawyer's office. Returning full ownership of our house to me, relinquishing any claim to my savings, and agreeing to my terms for custody. Gregory signed without hesitation. Catherine's hand shook as she scrawled her name. As I gathered the papers, a small voice came from the doorway. Mommy, can we go home now? Emma stood there, her eyes wide and confused. I scooped her up, holding her close. Yes, baby, we're going home. I turned to Gregory and Catherine one last time. I won't press charges for Emma's sake, but if you ever try to come between me and my daughter again, I won't hesitate. Gregory nodded, tears in his eyes. I understand. I'm sorry, Kels, for everything. As I walked out of that house, Emma in my arms, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months, I could breathe freely. Weeks later, I sat on our porch, my porch, watching Emma play in the yard. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Proud of you, sweetheart? Dinner next week? I smiled, typing back a quick yes. We were rebuilding our relationship, slowly but surely. The sound of a car pulling up made me tense, but it was just Sarah, my lawyer and friend. She joined me on the porch, grinning. Got the final paperwork today, she said. It's all official, the house, the savings, everything. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. It's really over. Sarah squeezed my hand. You did it, Kels. You stood up for yourself and won. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the yard, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The past months had been a battle, but I'd emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever. I thought of all the women like me, fighting their own battles against manipulation and deceit. I hope my story might give them courage, show them that it's never too late to reclaim your life and your dignity. Emma's laughter floated across the yard, and I smiled. We had a bright future ahead of us, free from shadows and secrets, and I was ready to embrace every moment of it. I slammed the front door behind me, my hands shaking as I fumbled with my keys. The house was quiet, but the silence felt oppressive, heavy with unspoken truths. Jake's car wasn't in the driveway, and I knew exactly where he'd be. Not at work, like he'd told me this morning, but probably drowning his sorrows at O'Malley's again. "Damn it, Jake," I muttered, tossing my purse onto the kitchen counter. The answering machine blinked accusingly, and I hit play with more force than necessary. "Mrs. Lawson, this is Sandra from Midwest Insurance. I'm calling to follow up on the claim your husband filed last week regarding his termination." My stomach dropped. Termination? Jake had sworn up and down he'd quit his job at the bank 2 weeks ago, citing creative differences with his boss. I'd been skeptical. It was the 3rd job he'd left in as many years, but I'd wanted to believe him. The machine beeped again. "Emma, honey, it's your mother-in-law. I hope you're not working too late again. Jake could really use your support right now. Call me back, dear." I deleted Martha's message with a vicious jab. Of course she'd take his side. In her eyes, Jake could do no wrong, and any of his shortcomings were clearly my fault. The front door creaked open, and I steeled myself. Jake stumbled in, reeking of whiskey and failure. "Hey, babe," he slurred, attempting a lopsided grin. "You're home early." "Cut the crap, Jake," I snapped. "I know you were fired. Why did you lie to me?" His face fell, guilt flashing in his bloodshot eyes. I didn't want to disappoint you again? So you thought lying was the better option?" I ran a hand through my hair, frustration building. How are we supposed to trust each other if you can't even be honest about something like this? Jake slumped onto the couch, head in his hands. "I'm sorry, Em. I really messed up this time." "This time?" I echoed, my voice rising. "Jake, this is becoming a pattern. We can't keep living like this. What happened?" He mumbled something about a missed deadline and an angry client. The same old story, different day. I paced the living room, my mind racing. "We need to make some changes," I said firmly. "I can't keep being the only reliable income in this household, and you need to." The phone rang, cutting me off. Jake lunged for it, relief evident on his face at the interruption. "Hello? Oh, hi, Mom," he said, shooting me a pleading look. I rolled my eyes and headed for the kitchen, needing some space. As I filled a glass of water, Jake's voice drifted in from the other room. "Yeah, Emma's here. She, found out about the job. No, I haven't told her that part yet." I froze, my grip tightening on the glass. What else was he hiding? "Mom, I don't think that's a good idea," Jake was saying, his voice low and urgent. "Emma won't—" "No, I know you're trying to help, but—" I stormed back into the living room. "Won't what, Jake? What brilliant plan has your mother cooked up now?" Jake's eyes widened in panic. "Nothing. It's nothing. Mom, I gotta go." He hung up quickly, avoiding my gaze. "Jake," I said, my tone dangerous. "What aren't you telling me?" He fidgeted with the phone cord, looking everywhere but at me. "It's just, Mom thought it might be good if she came to stay with us for a while, to help out, you know?" The glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. Water and shards of glass spread at my feet, a perfect metaphor for the mess our life had become. "Your mother," I said slowly, "wants to move in with us?" Jake nodded miserably. "Just temporarily, until I can get back on my feet." I stared at him, speechless. This was a nightmare. Martha, with her judgmental looks and backhanded compliments, living under our roof? The very thought made my skin crawl. "Emma, please," Jake pleaded. "It won't be for long. We need the help, and—" "We?" I interrupted, my voice sharp. "There is no we in this decision, Jake. You and your mother don't get to decide how we handle your mistakes." I turned on my heel, carefully stepping over the broken glass. "Clean this up," I said over my shoulder. "I need some air." As I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, I heard Jake call out desperately, "Emma, wait! Where are you going?" I paused, my hand on the doorknob. "To figure out how to fix the mess you've made of our lives," I replied, not looking back. "And Jake, don't wait up." I stormed into my office the next morning, my head pounding from a restless night. The last thing I needed was to deal with Martha's judgmental attitude on top of Jake's lies. But there she was, her number flashing on my phone as it rang incessantly. Emma speaking, I answered curtly, bracing myself. Emma, dear, Martha's saccharine voice oozed through the line. I hope I'm not interrupting your very important work. I gritted my teeth. What can I do for you, Martha? I'm worried about Jake, she sighed dramatically. He's been so down lately, I can't help but wonder if your career focus might be affecting him. My grip tightened on the receiver. Excuse me? Well, you know how men are, Martha continued, oblivious to the anger building in my chest. They need support, attention. Jake's always been sensitive. Perhaps if you were home more. Martha, I cut her off, my voice dangerously low. Jake is a grown man. His job troubles are his own responsibility. But as his wife, I interrupted, I've been supporting us financially for years while Jake hops from job to job. Don't you dare imply this is my fault. Martha gasped, affronted. I'm only trying to help, Emma. Someone needs to be there for Jake, and if you're too busy climbing the corporate ladder. Stop right there, I snapped. My career isn't the problem. Jake's inability to hold down a job is. And frankly, Martha, your coddling isn't doing him any favors. Well, I never, Martha huffed. If that's how you feel, maybe it's best if I come stay with you both for a while. Jake clearly needs a supportive presence at home. My blood ran cold. That won't be necessary, I said firmly. Jake and I can handle our own affairs. We'll see about that, Martha replied ominously before hanging up. I slammed the phone down, fuming. The nerve of that woman. As if I hadn't bent over backwards trying to help Jake. My phone buzzed with a text from him. Mom's worried about us. Maybe we should let her visit? I ignored it, focusing on my work. Hours flew by as I buried myself in spreadsheets and client calls, anything to avoid thinking about the mess waiting for me at home. It was nearly 8 p.m. when I finally left the office. As I pulled into our driveway, I froze. Martha's car was parked in my usual spot. I found them in the kitchen, Jake nervously stirring a pot while Martha fussed over place settings. What's going on? I demanded, dropping my briefcase with a thud. Martha turned, all smiles. Emma, darling, we were wondering when you'd grace us with your presence. I hope you don't mind. I took the liberty of preparing dinner. You took liberties, all right, I muttered, glaring at Jake. He avoided my gaze, suddenly very interested in his cooking. Jake mentioned you two were having some difficulties. Martha continued, her tone dripping with false concern. I thought a nice family dinner might help smooth things over. I laughed bitterly. Family dinner? Is that what this is? Jake finally looked up. Please. Mom's just trying to help. Help? I exploded. By ambushing me in my own home? By blaming me for your problems? Martha gasped. I would never. Save it, I snapped. I heard enough this morning. You made it perfectly clear what you think of me and my career. Jake stepped between us. Emma, that's not fair. Mom's here because she cares. Oh, she cares all right, I retorted. She cares about controlling our lives, about making me the villain in her perfect little narrative. Now, Emma, Martha began, her voice sickly sweet. I know you're under a lot of stress, but there's no need for dramatics. Why don't we all sit down and... No, I said firmly. I'm not doing this. Not tonight. I turned to Jake. You invited her here without even asking me, didn't you? His guilty expression said it all. I grabbed my keys, my hands shaking with rage. Emma, wait, Jake called as I headed for the door. Where are you going? I paused, my hand on the doorknob. Somewhere I'm actually wanted, I replied coldly. Enjoy your family dinner. As I slammed the door behind me, I heard Martha's voice drift out. Well, I never. Jake, darling, you really need to do something about that wife of yours. I got in my car and drove, tears blurring my vision. How had my life come to this? And more importantly, how was I going to fix it? I pulled into the driveway after a long day at work, my stomach knotting as I saw Martha's car still parked where it had been for the past week. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself and walked inside. The living room looked like a tornado had hit it. Martha's belongings were strewn everywhere, suitcases overflowing with clothes, boxes piled high with knickknacks, and framed photos of her and Jake littering every surface. What the hell is going on? I demanded, my voice echoing through the house. Jake emerged from the kitchen, looking sheepish. Emma, honey, I can explain. Jake invited me to stay for a while, Martha interrupted, sweeping into the room with a triumphant smile. Isn't it wonderful? Now I can help out around the house and give you more time to focus on your career. I felt the blood drain from my face. Stay? For how long? Jake shuffled his feet, avoiding my gaze. Well, you see, Mom's having some financial troubles of her own. I thought maybe she could live with us until she gets back on her feet. Live with us? I repeated, my voice rising. Jake, we can barely afford to keep ourselves afloat. How are we supposed to support your mother, too? Martha clucked her tongue. Now, Emma, there's no need to be so dramatic. I'm sure with a little belt-tightening we can make it work. After all, family comes first. I whirled on her. This isn't your decision to make, Martha. This is our home, mine and Jake's. Of course it is, dear, Martha said patronizingly. But Jake agrees it's for the best. Don't you, sweetheart? Jake nodded weakly, and I felt something inside me snap. How dare you? I hissed, advancing on him. How dare you make this decision without even talking to me? This is my house too, Jake. My life. Please, Jake pleaded. Mom needs our help. We can't just turn our backs on her. Like you turned your back on your job responsibilities. I shot back. Or how about how you've turned your back on our marriage by lying to me? Martha gasped. Emma, that's no way to speak to your husband. I rounded on her. And you waltz in here, criticizing my choices, blaming me for Jake's shortcomings, and now you expect me to support you? I'm only trying to help, Martha sniffed. Someone needs to keep this family together. We were doing just fine before you showed up, I snapped. Jake stepped between us. Emma, that's enough. Mom's staying, and that's final. I stared at him, disbelief and betrayal coursing through me. Final? You don't get to make that decision unilaterally, Jake. Well, someone has to make decisions around here, he retorted. You're never home anyway. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back, grabbing my purse. I'm never home because I'm working my ass off to keep us afloat while you bounce from job to job. Emma, wait, Jake started, but I was already heading for the door. No, Jake, I'm done waiting. I'm done being the bad guy in this scenario. I paused at the threshold, turning back to face them both. You want to play happy families with Mommy Dearest? Fine, but don't expect me to stick around and watch. Where are you going? Jake called after me. To a hotel, I replied coldly, since apparently I'm no longer welcome in my own home. As I got into my car, I heard Martha's voice drift out the open door. Let her go, Jake. She'll come to her senses eventually. Now, why don't you help me unpack? I peeled out of the driveway, tears blurring my vision. How had it come to this? My husband choosing his mother over me, my home invaded, my life upended. As I drove aimlessly through the darkening streets, a cold resolve settled over me. If Jake and Martha wanted to play dirty, fine. Two could play at that game. It was time to start planning my next move and my revenge. I'd been staying at the Comfort Inn for a week, trying to gather my thoughts and plan my next move. The constant buzzing of my phone, Jake's desperate texts and Martha's passive-aggressive voicemails only fueled my determination. I needed to go home and face this head-on. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Jake's car was gone. Perfect. I could grab some clothes without a confrontation. But as I entered the house, I heard Martha's shrill voice coming from the kitchen. I don't care what it takes, Richard. You can't do this to me now. I froze, my hand still on the doorknob. Martha was clearly in the middle of a heated phone call, unaware of my presence. Don't you dare bring up my indiscretion, she hissed. You're the one who's been embezzling from the company for years. My eyes widened. What on earth was going on? Fine, file for divorce, Martha spat. But don't think I won't take you for everything you're worth. I know where all the bodies are buried, Richard. The call ended abruptly, and I heard Martha's muffled sobs. Despite my anger, a small part of me felt a twinge of sympathy, but that feeling evaporated as soon as Martha spoke again, this time leaving a voicemail. Jake, honey, it's Mom. Listen, I need you to talk to Emma about accessing some of your joint savings. It's just a small loan to tide me over. I'm sure she'll understand. After all, we're family. Red-hot fury coursed through me. How dare she? I stormed into the kitchen, making Martha jump. Emma, she gasped, hastily wiping her eyes. I didn't hear you come in. Clearly, I said coldly. Too busy trying to swindle us out of our savings, were you? Martha's face paled. You heard that? Every word, I confirmed, including your charming conversation with Richard. Infidelity and embezzlement, Martha. My, what would the neighbors say? You don't understand, Martha pleaded, her earlier bravado crumbling. Richard's trying to ruin me. I need help. I laughed bitterly. And your solution is to ruin us instead? To bleed us dry while you've been sitting pretty on stolen money for years? It wasn't like that, Martha protested. Richard handled all the finances. I didn't know. Save it, I snapped. I don't want to hear your excuses. What I want is for you to pack your bags and get out of my house. Martha's eyes narrowed. You can't throw me out. Jake invited me to stay. Watch me, I growled, advancing on her. You've manipulated and lied to us from the moment you got here. You blamed me for Jake's problems, invaded our home, and now you're trying to steal from us. I am Jake's mother, Martha shrieked. He'll never choose you over me. The front door slammed, and Jake's voice called out, Mom? Emma? What's going on? Martha's face transformed instantly, tears welling up in her eyes as Jake entered the kitchen. Oh, Jake, she wailed. Emma's being so cruel. She wants to throw me out on the street. Jake looked between us, confusion evident on his face. Emma, what? Don't you dare fall for her act, I warned him. Your mother's been lying to us both. She's getting divorced because she cheated on Richard, just who's been embezzling money for years, and now she wants to borrow from our savings to cover her ass. Jake's jaw dropped. Mom, is this true? Martha's sobs intensified. Jake, please, you don't understand. I had no choice. I turned to Jake, my voice steel. It's time to make a decision, Jake. Either she goes or I do, for good this time. The tension in the room was palpable as Jake looked between his sobbing mother and me, his wife, standing firm and unyielding. I could see the conflict in his eyes, years of maternal manipulation warring with the truth laid bare before him. Jake, I said softly, but with conviction, this is it. This is the moment that decides our future. Choose wisely. As Jake opened his mouth to speak, I held my breath, knowing that whatever came next would change all of our lives forever. Jake's eyes darted between Martha and me, his face a mask of confusion and pain. I need some time to think, he stammered, backing out of the kitchen. Jake, please! Martha wailed, reaching for him. But he was already gone, the front door slamming behind him. I stood there, trembling with rage and hurt. I hope you're happy, Martha, I spat. You've torn this family apart. Martha's tear-streaked face hardened. You did that all on your own, Emma, if you'd been a proper wife. Don't you dare, I hissed, cutting her off. I'm going to pack some things. When I come back down, I expect you to be gone. I stormed upstairs, my mind reeling. As I threw clothes into a suitcase, I heard Martha's muffled voice. She was on the phone again. Quietly, I crept to the top of the stairs to listen. Richard, please, she was saying, her voice desperate. I need more time. No, don't call the lawyers yet. I have a plan. My blood ran cold. What was she up to now? Jake and Emma have savings, Martha continued. If I can just get access. No, they don't suspect anything. Emma's too caught up in her career to notice. I gripped the banister, my knuckles turning white. She was planning to steal from us. Just give me a week, Martha pleaded. I'll have the money, and we can make this all go away. I'd heard enough. I marched downstairs, my face a thundercloud. Martha jumped as I entered the room, hastily ending her call. Emma, save it, I snapped. I heard everything. You're not just trying to borrow money, you're planning to steal it. Martha's face crumpled. You don't understand. Richard will ruin me if I don't pay him off. I had no choice. There's always a choice, I said coldly. And you chose to lie, cheat, and steal. Well, guess what? It ends now. I pulled out my phone and dialed Jake's number. It went straight to voicemail. Jake, it's Emma. Your mother is planning to steal our savings to pay off Richard. Come home now. We need to talk. Martha lunged for me, trying to grab the phone. You can't do this, she shrieked. I dodged her, my voice rising. Watch me. It's over, Martha. Your lies, your manipulation, all of it. Just then, the front door opened. Jake walked in, his face ashen. I heard everything, he said quietly. The voicemail came through as I was sitting in the car. Martha collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Jake, sweetheart, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Jake interrupted, his voice hard. You've been lying to us, Mom. Using us. And now you are going to steal from us? I felt a surge of hope. Was Jake finally seeing the truth? But then he turned to me, his eyes cold. And you, Emma, you've been so wrapped up in your job, you didn't even notice what was happening in our own home. My jaw dropped. Are you serious right now? I've been supporting us while you can't hold down a job. I've been putting up with your mother's constant criticism and manipulation. Jake shook his head. Maybe if you'd been around more, none of this would have happened. I stared at him, disbelief and fury warring inside me. In that moment, I saw my future laid out before me. A life of constantly being blamed, of never being enough, of sacrificing everything for a man who would always choose his mother over me. "You know what?" I said, my voice deadly calm. "You're right, Jake. I haven't been around enough, so let me fix that right now." I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the door. Jake called after me, "Emma, wait! Where are you going?" I paused at the threshold, looking back at the two people who had betrayed me so deeply. "I'm leaving," I said firmly. "For good this time. You two deserve each other." As I walked out, I heard Martha's triumphant whisper to Jake, "It's for the best, darling. Now, about that savings account." I got into my car, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. This wasn't just about leaving anymore. It was about protecting myself and everything I'd worked for. It was time to call a lawyer and start divorce proceedings. Jake and Martha wanted to play dirty? Fine. I'd show them just how ruthless I could be. I sat in my lawyer's office, reviewing the divorce papers for what felt like the 100th time. 2 weeks had passed since I'd walked out on Jake and Martha, and I was determined to protect myself and my assets. "Everything looks in order, Emma," my lawyer Sarah said. "We've frozen the joint accounts, and Jake won't be able to touch your personal savings. Are you ready to file?" I took a deep breath, my hand hovering over the papers. This was it, the point of no return. Just as I was about to sign, my phone buzzed. Martha's number flashed on the screen. "Ignore it," Sarah advised, but something made me hesitate. "I should at least hear what she has to say," I muttered, answering the call. "Emma?" Martha's voice was uncharacteristically small. "Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you." "I have nothing to say to you, Martha," I replied coldly. "Please," she begged. "I've made a terrible mistake. I need your help." Against my better judgment, I found myself listening as Martha poured out a story of deceit and desperation. Her voice cracked as she admitted to her affair, to the lies she'd told Jake about me, to her plan to use our money to cover up her husband's embezzlement. "I never meant for it to go this far," she sobbed. "I thought if I could just buy some time, fix things with Richard, but it's all fallen apart. He's filing for divorce, threatening to expose everything. I have nowhere else to turn." I felt a mix of emotions, anger, pity, vindication. "Why are you telling me this now, Martha?" "Because I realize now how wrong I was," she whispered. "About everything, about you. I need your help, Emma, not just for me but for Jake too." My heart clenched at the mention of Jake's name. "What about Jake?" Martha's voice trembled. "He's a mess, Emma. He finally sees the truth, but he doesn't know how to fix things. He misses you terribly." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. "It's too late for that, Martha. I'm at my lawyer's office right now, about to file for divorce." "No," Martha cried. "Please, Emma, give us a chance to make this right. I'll tell Jake everything, I swear. Just come home. Let's talk face to face." I looked at the divorce papers in front of me, then at Sarah, who was watching me with concern. I need to think about this," I said finally. "Of course," Martha replied, hope creeping into her voice. "Take all the time you need. We'll be here." I ended the call, my mind reeling. Sarah leaned forward, her brow furrowed. "Emma, whatever she said, remember why you're here. Don't let her manipulate you again." I nodded absently, but my resolve was wavering. What if Martha was telling the truth? What if this was my chance to finally get the whole story, to confront both her and Jake with all the facts? "I need to go," I said abruptly, standing up. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I need to see this through." Sarah sighed, but nodded understanding. "Be careful, Emma, and call me if you need anything." As I drove home, was it still home? My emotions warred within me. Part of me was screaming that this was a trap, that Martha and Jake would never change. But another part, a part I thought I'd silenced, whispered of hope and second chances. I pulled into the driveway, my heart pounding. The house looked the same, but everything felt different. As I approached the front door, I saw Jake through the window, pacing anxiously. Our eyes met, and I saw a flash of relief cross his face. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob. This was it, the moment of truth. Whatever happened next would determine the course of all our lives. I took a deep breath and opened the door, stepping into the unknown. As I stepped into the house, the air felt thick with tension. Jake stood in the living room, his face a mixture of relief and apprehension. Martha sat on the couch, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "Emma," Jake breathed, taking a step towards me. I'm so glad you came. I held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. I'm here to listen. Nothing more. Martha, you said you had something to tell us both. So talk. Martha nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. I've been lying to you both about everything. For the next 20 minutes, Martha spilled her secrets. Her affair with a family friend, Richard's embezzlement from his company, their impending divorce, and her desperate plan to use our money to cover it all up. With each revelation, Jake's face grew paler, his hands clenching into fists. How could you, Mom? He whispered, his voice breaking. How could you lie to us like this? Martha sobbed, reaching for Jake, but he recoiled. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I could fix everything before you found out. I stood there, a storm of emotions raging inside me. Anger at Martha's deception, pity for her desperation, and a growing realization that Jake had been as much a victim of her manipulation as I had. Jake, I said softly, turning to my husband, did you know any of this? He shook his head, looking shell-shocked. No, God, Emma, I had no idea. I thought Mom just needed our help. I never imagined. That's why I called you, Martha interjected, her voice pleading. I realize now how wrong I was. About everything. I need your help, both of you. Please. I laughed bitterly. Help? After everything you've done? You tried to steal from us, Martha. You nearly destroyed our marriage. I know, she wailed, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you both. But right now, I need your help to fix this mess with Richard. If we don't act fast, he'll expose everything, and we'll all go down. Jake turned to me, his eyes desperate. Emma, what should we do? I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on me. This was it. The crossroads where I had to decide not just the fate of my marriage, but the future of our entire family. No, I said firmly, surprising even myself with the steel in my voice. We're not doing this, Martha. Not anymore. But, Martha started, but I cut her off. No more lies, no more schemes. You made this mess, and you're going to face the consequences. We all are. I turned to Jake, my heart pounding. I love you, Jake, but I can't keep living like this. We can't keep enabling your mother's behavior. Jake nodded slowly, realization dawning in his eyes. You're right. Mom, I'm sorry, but Emma's right. We can't help you cover this up. Martha's face crumpled. But what am I supposed to do? Where will I go? That's not our problem anymore, I said, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Jake, we need to talk. Alone. As we left Martha sobbing on the couch, Jake and I retreated to the kitchen. The air between us was charged with unspoken words and lingering hurt. Emma, Jake began, his voice thick with emotion. I've been such a fool. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in months. I saw the man I fell in love with, but I also saw the weak-willed son who had let his mother come between us. I don't know, Jake, I said honestly. I love you, but I don't know if love is enough anymore. We have a lot to work through. Jake nodded, tears in his eyes. I understand. Whatever it takes, Emma. I want to make this right. As we stood there in our kitchen, the sound of Martha's sobs drifting in from the living room, I realized that this was just the beginning. We had a long, hard road ahead of us, facing the consequences of Martha's actions, rebuilding trust, and figuring out if our marriage could survive this ultimate test. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever happened next, I knew I had the strength to face it head-on. 1 year later, I stood in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes and the promise of a fresh start. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago, and I was finally ready to close this chapter of my life. My phone buzzed with a text from my boss. Congratulations on the promotion, Emma. Can't wait to see what you'll do as our new marketing director. I smiled, a sense of pride washing over me. This was what I had been working towards all along. Recognition for my skills and dedication, not judgment for my ambition. As I unpacked, I came across a photo of Jake and me from happier times. A twinge of sadness hit me, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of peace. We had tried to work things out after Martha's confession, but the trust was too badly broken. In the end, we both realized that sometimes love isn't enough. The doorbell rang, startling me from my reverie. I opened it to find Martha standing there, looking older and more subdued than I remembered. Emma, she said softly, I hope I'm not intruding. I wanted to apologize, again, and to give you this. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for a substantial amount, far more than she'd ever tried to take from us. "It's everything I have," Martha explained, her voice trembling. "I sold the house, my jewelry. I want to make amends for what I did to you and Jake." I stared at the check, a whirlwind of emotions coursing through me. "Martha, Please," she interrupted. "I know it doesn't fix anything, but I hope it helps you start your new life. I see that now." As I looked at this woman who had caused me so much pain, I felt the last of my anger melting away. "Thank you, Martha, but I don't need this. I've already started my new life." I handed the check back to her. "Use it to start over yourself. Learn from this and be better." Martha's eyes filled with tears. "You're a remarkable woman, Emma. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." After she left, I sat on my new couch, processing what had just happened. My phone buzzed again, a text from Jake this time. "Heard about your promotion. Congratulations, Em. You always were the strong one." I smiled sadly, typing back a simple "thank you." As I hit send, I realized that this truly was the end of an era. Jake and Martha would always be a part of my past, but they no longer had the power to shape my future. I walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. My new life stretched before me, full of possibilities. No more compromising my dreams, no more dimming my light to make others comfortable. I was free to be unapologetically myself. As the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, I felt a sense of excitement building within me. Tomorrow was a new day, the first day of the rest of my life, and I was ready to face it head-on, stronger and wiser than ever before. I thought about all the women out there facing similar struggles, torn between family obligations and personal ambitions, fighting to be heard and valued. I hoped that my story might inspire them to stand up for themselves, to demand the respect and love they deserved. In that moment, I made a promise to myself. I would use my new position not just to advance my career, but to mentor other women, to help them find their voices and chase their dreams. My journey had been difficult, but it had taught me invaluable lessons about resilience, self-worth, and the power of staying true to oneself. As night fell, I raised a glass to my reflection in the window. "Here's to new beginnings," I toasted, "to strength, to growth, and to never settling for less than you deserve." The future was bright, and for the first time in years, I felt truly, genuinely happy. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew I had the strength to face them. After all, I was Emma, resilient, ambitious, and finally, gloriously free.